of your asceticism, you experience different states. For example, when I was worshipping Hanuman, there was no question of thinking about women or anything else. I had no contact with women for a very long time. That was my asceticism at the time. So, each asceticism is a period of your life. Lastly, I have noticed that the sadhus who live entirely alone were frustrated people who would never reach a higher state. A sannyasi must be as much a pauper as a king. He must be able to live in the world as fully as a king, just as much as in solitude and relinquishment. There are two sides to the coin. He must be able to live his life in total plenitude on the outside, like King Ram, for example, and on the inside, experience total inner solitude. I have experienced both states at different times in my life. Relations with the villagers are distant. Between your asceticism and the life they lead, there's a great difference. They have totally opposite vibrations. So, I avoid going to the village to try and keep my vibrations and not allow them to be damaged. It's not always easy. I just go for a walk, go to the river, and then go back to the ashram without going to see anyone. We have a very subtle bond with this river, which I feel very deeply. The river has adopted me, and I have adopted the river. I see the river as my guru. It's the guru of all gurus in a way, a real living force. For most people, it's just a river. For me, it's a goddess. My day-to-day life is that of my sadhana. We get up early and meditate. We do some hatha yoga exercises every day to keep fit, and then most of the time we're in the temple. That is, for the daily puja and much recitation of mantras morning and evening.
Beaucoup de récitation de mantras. Le matin et le soir. Chez des gens qui sont dits être normaux.
In so-called normal people, the mind is always working, thinking of this, thinking of that. When you no longer think of anything else but your mantras, you become completely absorbed by the mantra and by the consciousness that the mantra develops. You stop having thoughts. There is nothing. You're in a more or less elevated level of consciousness, but the mind is no longer at work. The mind no longer needs to function, if you like. It's a state of peace, of serenity.
je suis obligé, moi, de me forcer.
When I have to go, for example, to Baruch, I pray to the divinity to send me to Baruch, because I am incapable of wanting to go to Baruch myself. I have no personal thought telling me, you must go to Baruch.
J'ai pas une pensée personnelle qui me dit, il faut que tu ailles à Baruch. Je sais qu'il faut que j'aille à Baruch, alors
I know I must go to Baruch, so I ask the divinity to push me, to take me there.
c'est ce qu'on appelle sankalp.
It's quite complicated.
De vivre avec une
It's what we call sankalp.
Par exemple,
For example,
en train de filmer,
you are making a film.
à la divinité que
I have asked the divinity to ensure the filming goes well, because for me, the film doesn't mean anything, but it's important for you.
si ce n'est que ça représente quelque chose pour vous, quoi.
It's a fairly complex attitude.
C'est complexe comme état, ça. On s'appartient plus, en fait.
You no longer belong to yourself,
On lui appartient, mais on s'appartient plus.
you belong to him.
Il y a plus.
It's not your ego asking you to do things for him all the time. It's the Lord telling you what needs to be done, and you have to be in a totally receptive state for this to function.
Ça se passe. Le sage Patanjali avait écrit tout un tas de samadhi dans son
The wise man Patanjali describes a lot of samadhi in his Sufran.
de communion. Chitta vritti nirodha.
It's a state of communion. That is, there are no more thoughts, no forming of disturbing phenomena. You succeed in being yourself, in communion with yourself, and that's where samadhi begins, where it emerges.
C'est là que le samadhi commence, et ça monte, quoi. Normalement, dans les états de samadhi, il y a des...
There are different states of samadhi. When you start to do samadhi, after 1 hour, you reach a certain state.
Au bout d'une heure, tu atteins un certain état, mais si tu te...
If you sit for 3 hours and meditate well, you reach higher states of consciousness.
Tu arrives à monter de plus en plus dans des états de conscience, si tu veux. Hein, mais enfin, la meilleure des choses, c'est...
But ideally, you should be in a permanent state of samadhi quite naturally, being with yourself, even with your eyes open.
Simplement, il faut que tu fasses
That doesn't mean you have to have your eyes closed to be in a state of samadhi.
avec toi-même, c'est tout.
It's about being at one with yourself. That's all. The aim, basically, is to be in total harmony with yourself, in total balance with yourself at all times.
Toi-même, dans tous les moments de la vie. Quelqu'un qui a pratiqué la méditation pendant
Someone who has meditated for 30 years is very perceptive, very sensitive.
sensible,
His body, his spirit, his energy channels, and his nerves are very sensitive.
les nerfs, tout ça sont très 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 sensibles. Et à partir du moment où d'un seul coup tu mets dans ton
If you put
système
chemical substances into your system which have nothing to do with what you do, it can definitely cause serious problems, and I have experienced that.
j'ai subi les conséquences. Hein. Quand je suis revenu de l'Himalaya, j'étais allé...
I went to the source of the Ganges. It's at an altitude of more than 4,000 meters.
Quand je suis revenu ici, j'ai eu des problèmes de
When I came back here, I had a high blood pressure problem.
tension artérielle et les docteurs là, à Baruch m'ont donné un médicament.
The doctors in Baruch gave me medicine.
Toute mon
From that moment, all my energy circuits were disrupted.
et ça m'a petit à petit ça m'a
Little by little, my health declined. I had a terrible nervous breakdown. I was totally affected.
ça m'a complètement affecté. Là je vais beaucoup mieux.
I'm much better now. Anyway, what that episode showed me was that I am, above all else, a human being.
Que j'étais un être humain avant.
Alors sur le plan religieux, bon, il est certain que j'étais...
In terms of religion, I was, by nature and by deep conviction, an atheist.
j'étais le mécréant. Hein.
I was the unbeliever.
Et ce voyage en Inde
And this journey to India blew some of these convictions to pieces.
parce que je me suis trouvé devant des situations totalement
I found myself in some totally irrational situations, but which I had to accept as real and adapt to them, in the same way that Catholics adapt to things that they experience.
dans la religion catholique, on se modifie en fonction des choses qui vous arrivent. Hein.
Ma mère était très étonnée de voir l'impact.
My mother was surprised by the impact this journey to India had on me.
Comment peux-tu accepter
She said, "How can you accept a god with an elephant's head, or a monkey god, and so on?" I was obliged to explain to her that that didn't alter my faith in any way. It had simply broadened a little bit. The horizon, yes, because God is God, and if one of his facets is called Ganesh, Hanuman, or Shiva, it didn't bother me at all.
ou Shiva, ça ne me dérangeait pas du tout.
Pour ce qui est de l'expérience de Jayramdas, lui seul peut répondre.
The only person who could draw a conclusion from Jayramdas' experience is Jayramdas himself.
Je pense que
He alone can judge this adventure, this experience. He chose this path from the beginning. He followed it through to the end, and in that sense, I think he has changed drastically, for the better.
radicalement et pour le meilleur. Hein.
Et loin de nous éloigner de lui,
Instead of separating us, it has brought us closer together.
rapproché.
I think that despite the physical distance, we feel very close to him.
Matériel, on se sent très proche de lui.
सहस्रारे पद्मे सहरहसि पत्या विहरसे
Je ne sais pas si j'ai fait ce qu'il y avait de mieux.
I don't know whether I did the best thing.
Je suis passé à côté de beaucoup de choses.
I definitely missed out on a lot of things.
Qui auraient pu
There are a lot of things I didn't do which would have been very enriching.
pas mal, là, si je dis ça.
You can't do everything. You have to choose.
Par exemple, je pense que
For example, I think I could have been a successful artist.
je peux faire beaucoup de choses, mais enfin, mon maître
I could have done lots of things, but my master taught me that you have to abandon everything to obtain what you want. You can only achieve this through absolute renouncement. Otherwise, it's impossible.
Le Christ dit la même chose. Hein.
Christ says the same thing.
C'est un choix à faire, mais enfin, est-ce que c'est vraiment
So you
le
have
meilleur
to
des choix?
choose. Was it the best choice?
30 ans après, je dis non, je pense qu'il y a moyen.
30 years on, I'd say it wasn't. I think there's a more balanced way of doing
J'ai vécu
things.
à une époque en Inde, c'est pas l'Inde
But then,
d'aujourd'hui, c'est une
I
époque
lived at a certain time in India,
où on vivait la vie assez
not the India of today. We really did lead an ascetic life.
dure, on avait des conditions de vie vraiment dans des difficultés intenses. Quoi.
We had very harsh living conditions. We lived in intense difficulty.
Ascétique, aussi intense qu'on a pu le
Now, I don't know many sadhus who lead an ascetic life as intensely as we used to.
Des satisfactions, certainement. Je sais pas.
Satisfactions? Certainly. I'm not unhappy being what I am.
Enfin, je souhaiterais surtout
Above all, I'd like to help others benefit from that. The overall aim of all this asceticism is one day having the ability to pass on the fruits of your asceticism to others. It's not easy, but it'll come, hopefully.
que ça viendra, hein. Je l'espère. Quelquefois, je me pose la question, quand je vois tous ces gens
Sometimes, when I see all those people, even in the village, looking so happy, going about their day-to-day business with contentment, I think that maybe they're the ones who've got it right, not me. Who is right and who is wrong? I have no idea.
la vérité qui est dans l'erreur, ça, j'en sais rien. D'après les Écritures,
According to the scriptures I have read, I've done the right thing, but I can't say whether that has made me happy or unhappy.
ça m'a rendu ni heureux ni
I am in a state where there is neither joy nor suffering.
Ils sont entre les deux. Il y a ni bonheur ni peine. Je communie.
I am in communion,
Je communie avec moi-même.
in communion with myself.
C'est ça la communion.
And communion means no longer being.
À ne plus être.
सविन्दु सिन्धु सुस्खलत रंग भंग रंजितम विशत्सु पाप जात जात कारिवारि संयुतम
सविन्दु सिन्धु सुस्खलत रंग भंग रंजितम दिशत्सु पाप जात जात कारिवारि संयुतम
कृतांत दूत काल भूत भीति हारि वर्मदे त्वदीय पाद पंकजम नमामि देवी नर्मदे
त्वदीय पाद पंकजं नमामि देवी नर्मदे नमामि देवी नर्मदे नमामि देवी नर्मदे नमामि
वामाङ्के च विभाति भूधरसुता देवापगामस्तके बाले बालविदुर्गले च गरलं यशोरसि व्यालराट् सोऽयम्भूतिविभूषणः सुरवरः सर्वाधिप सर्वदा सर्वगतः शिव शशिनिव श्रीशङ्करः पातु मां वन्दे देवम् उमापतिं सुरगुरुं वन्दे जगत्कारणं वन्दे पन्नगभूषणं मृगधरं वन्दे पशूनां पतिं वन्दे सूर्यशशाङ्कवनिनयनं वन्दे मुकुन्दप्रिया.
Say around 1986 I came into contact with Jayramdas. I was introduced by one of our friends and we used to have sort of a bhajans of Hanumanji and Ram and Devi and all. We used to say some 4 or 5 families we used to sit together. Then one day he came, he was invited, he came, I was introduced to it. Then again I was not introduced as a Sri Vidya worshipper or a Sri Vidya master.